Okay, welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to stamp on a gold foil board or sheet. I don't know what you call it. I think it's been described in some as cardstock, but I don't really think it's cardstock. I don't know what the official kind of definition of cardstock is, but I don't know. For the most part, I see these things being described as sheets or boards. Okay, to me, it's like the equivalent of like a 105 pound, cardstock of some sort, cover stock. And we're going to use this with the Nature Set number 6. The number 6 set was just featured in the Nancy Stamps YouTube channel, Stamp Wars 6. Just coincidence that this is Nature Set number 6, and that was number 6, their Stamp Wars 6. But if you haven't checked out those Stamp Wars, I'll put a link to it down below. Whatever the replay of it, or whatever the recorded version of it. But it's kind of like, it reminded me of one of those like cooking shows, or one of those types of competition shows where you have a set amount of time to do something, and then you have a host kind of throwing out different sabotages, as they called it, and it was amazing fun. I always have fun in stamping, but that's the most rubber stamp related fun I think I've had in a while. It was such a fun event to watch live. Okay, so I just have a couple stamps from that Nature Sets number 6 here. I think my inks are getting a little bit dry. I can't tell. I've ordered re-inkers for my Brilliance inks, but they're not here yet. But I really wanted to start on something here. I'm kind of addicted to this type of surface right now, just in terms of seeing, I don't know, just different compositions and different stamps and how they look on there. It's like one thing kind of, one type of result just kind of, it gets you hungry to see other stamps on that or with that media combination. And isn't that always kind of a fun thing, when you're kind of trying to learn something and then you come across a certain combination of media, especially if it's new to you. This one's old to me, though, and I've had this type of board before, but it's just like never utilized it, so it's almost like it's like opening the floodgates in terms of kind of ideas when you do one application of it with certain stamps. You really want to see other types of results using whatever other stamps you come to mind during that the process. Okay, so this is the ledge stamp right now, and I'm going to stamp it 3 times just to carry that design out to the edge of the card. Okay, this is a half-size sheet. When I'm doing dye-based inks and doing a lot of toning and coloring, most of the times it's with a quarter size piece of paper, 4¼ by 5½. But when I'm doing these experiments on this board, I do like to have it a little bit larger because, I don't know, I just want more space to be able to stamp more images in there and more parts of it, okay? Now this stamp set isn't necessarily made for like big cards. It's made for quarter size cards, but you can just you use less of the imagery naturally on a smaller format card. Okay, let's go with these pine rose right here, and I'm going to try something with this ink. I think I've tried it a couple times, but wasn't quite sure what I thought about it. But what I want to do is, what I do with dye-based inks is I transition it. So I'm wiping off the bottom of this quite a lot, so it's almost removing all of it. And then as I move up like this, up the stamp, I'm removing less ink. So there's more ink on top, less ink on the bottom. So in theory, it should stamp out lighter up there because this gold is a light ink, and it should transition down and just kind of fade out in the bottom. And why I'm doing that is because when I'm stamping it over these trees right here, around the lakeside cabin, I don't want that silhouette of those trees to disappear. So if I stamp this up here, if it was solid with ink all the way down to the bottom, it will just blend right in with those trees, okay? Which it wouldn't be bad, but it's just not what I want in this scene. Okay. That stamped out pretty solid on the bottom. Okay, this is where I'm learning how to, okay? Now see, if I took out that amount of dye ink, it would be, you wouldn't be able to see anything. So this is like a thicker paint, so I need to adjust my amount of removal, I guess you can say. See, like that's my dye ink removal, but I might need to go like this and make sure I remove even more. It feels like I'm removing everything though, because I'm just so used to doing it with dye-based inks. And maybe when, maybe very little of this ink still gives you a full impression, where a dye-based ink, if you go like that, you're only applying maybe half of it. So let's go ahead and test this out right here. Okay, that's a little bit better. See how that transitions? See that, how it fades out like that? That's what I wanted from this one. But I tell you what, let's go for a second impression with this inking, okay? And I'll stamp it right up here, and we'll see if it gives us an even lighter impression. Who knows, maybe it'll give us as deep an impression as that first impression over here. I don't know, but let's see what we can do here. Okay, perfect. See that right there? Doesn't it look like it's a little bit more distant, but there's still a pretty good amount of ink on there. Let's push it, okay? We're here to kind of test things out anyway, right? Oh my gosh, this is giving us so many incarnations of that one stamp. Look at this. I've wiped that off right there. That's the first impression, second impression, third impression. Look at the tops of those trees. It's almost as bright as this one. That's the third time. And I just used it right here on this half of it. And then I used the other half like that, okay? Now, this is a reflective type of surface. If this is a lake right here, what you can do is you can, I don't know, let's try this upside down here. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of an impression of it. It looks okay. Maybe that's exactly what we want, I don't know. Okay, but see that, where I have that down there? Now it's like reflections of the, above. It's kind of weird, thinking about reflections on such a reflective surface, but look at that. It's hard to show you because it's my camera and everything is reflecting back in there, but you see those. Okay, there you go. See how it's catching that light? You can see those reflections in the water. Look at that. That's what's great about this surface, but look at that, those trees, how different they look when you flash that light on them. Doesn't that look like really deep space? And that's using one ink. And not only that, boy, we sure got away with it. I think I could have inked this up one time, okay? Wiped off the bottom pretty good, and I could have went for all of those impressions in there. I didn't even need to ink it up that second time over there. So that's something that I've learned about that in the future when you're going for these deeper, more distant impressions. Just ink it up one time. This paper is super sealed off, so it's not absorbing the ink so fast. So it's so much of it isn't being and this is a pretty dry pad too. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't re-ink it. I was thinking about I need a re-inker for this, but maybe I should leave that as is. Maybe I don't want it too juicy. Okay, so something new learned in this test. Okay, let's go for a little bit of water pattern. Okay, now one of the things I'm finding with this is that this paper, because of that impression type of quality, I'm going to really wipe off the edges like this. I'll put a streak across there, okay? Because I don't want this to be like, when I stamp it out, I don't want it to be so distinct of a singular impression. I want to stamp several of these where they all blend together, so I'm wiping off the perimeter so I don't get that hard edge, okay? Now, after looking at that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp it out first there. Did I take off too much ink? I don't know. Let's test it out. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let me see if you can see it. Okay. All right, see that right in there? All those water patterns like that? Okay. So far, so good in terms of things learned. Okay, now this is where I think I've learned something from the first time I've done this. I'm going to put some foreground into my piece here. What I like to do in dye-based inks is I like to stamp out something lighter and something a little bit darker. But on this one I'm going to be going light and even lighter, so it's lighter and lighter. And sometimes this is what I'm trying to figure out right now, is if I want to go with the gold one and then go with the white one so that I have kind of this contrast working right in the front, right in the foreground. I have depth in the foreground. But sometimes I'm thinking it might look cleaner just to do it in white so that it's not so cluttered, okay? I can really push depth more when I'm using dye-based inks because I can use different values of everything. But on something like this, you know, we can't use, I don't know, too many different values, you know? I'm not going to be using like a light green and a dark green and a black or something like that in the foreground. It'll all get kind of cluttered looking. So let's just try the white here, okay? Now I'm going to have this tree going right off the bottom of my page, okay? Like it's closer to us. Okay. Now this is where also, when you get to things like this, where you're stamping kind of pigment ink over pigment ink, okay? Because that pigment ink right down there is not dry at all. I can just go like this. I can probably wipe off this entire scene still, okay? But just be sure, you know, be careful. And even when I'm careful, sometimes it was like, oh my God, I moved a little bit. But be careful not to, you know, when you put that stamp down, not to slide. I'm still getting used to it myself, okay? It's not so precarious, though, but I did do it on a couple impressions last time. I think that looks pretty good. I don't know why, but there seems to be kind of a goldish tinge to that. The white. The white is obviously lighter than the gold ink, but it definitely has gold in there. So it's either, I think it might be physically mixing with the gold impressions. Okay, now see when I stamp this out, it's a little bit whiter, but it's turning gold pretty fast. It could just be that, you know, the gold from the paper is just showing through because as this kind of sits there and sets up, it gets a little bit more translucent. It moves in the direction of transparent, okay? So what's underneath shows through. Okay, I like stamping my foreground images in kind of odd numbers. They say that compositionally you work things in odd numbers. I don't know. But see, here's 5. I don't know, it would look too symmetric if it's 2, 2 right there, right? So you kind of, you know, do an odd down there. But look at that depth there. Right, those trees right back there really look deep. That one looks really far back there. Boy, that white really shows up. It's kind of my camera, too, because it has to expose for the lightest things, so... And all this light's reflecting back in. It's tough to photograph these things, too. That's why when I'm posting to Instagram, I usually do this, and I have it, you know, kind of a little video instead. Okay, so we have something like this, and I am finding that quote stamps look really fantastic with these foil scenarios. I usually have something else, like a spectacular, I don't know, light beam array in a scene or something like that. Or, I don't know, something else is going on, but when I'm only doing the impressions like that, I'm not manipulating things like lighting as much. So these scenes come around so fast and easy. I find that these scenic sentiment quote stamps go um, they go well with dye-based, or any type of scene, but I find that, I don't know, they are especially kind of nice on this type of paper. I don't know, maybe from a kind of balance standpoint or something like that. Okay, so this is from Scenic Sentiment, sheet number 3, and what this says, this is one of my longest quotes here, is, "A lake is the landscape's most beautiful and expressive feature. It is Earth's eye, looking into which the beholder measures the depth of his own nature." Henry David Thoreau. Okay. And we have, a large enough piece here to where, a long quote certainly fitting. I can center, I think I'm going to put it over on this left-hand side. Hopefully it comes out even. I've been lucky so far. I don't know, I haven't had any quotes too kind of crooked. I usually don't measure things out too carefully. I just kind of stamp them out and just hope, And I think that looks pretty good there. Okay. Look at that, how it stamps out, even like over those trees. But see, if those trees were a lot lighter, like these ones, okay, maybe it wouldn't stand out so much. So you stamp it over kind of those drier, lighter versions of it. Now, again, this is going to, as it dries, it's going to get a little bit more translucent, direct, It already is translucent, but it kind of moves a little bit more towards transparent, I think. I don't know. These trees down here look like they stopped kind of fading out, so. Okay, so we have those 3 elements now with the white. And let's see here. I don't know what this is. It could be in terms of light, night and day. I think on the gold, this could be a nighttime scene. It looks dark up there right now, but, that looks, when you flash it in the light, it's day or whatever, with something like that. That's my studio light here. But let's see what we can do here in terms of some other little special types of elements. I don't like to go too far, I'm finding, with the embellishments on something like this. I find that the surface is certainly loud enough, okay, in terms of the visual impact. So a lot of times I like to add in little highlights. I do find that it looks fine to add some of the Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white splatter painting in here. I don't know. Even that's a lot of texture. I find it's not quite as intrusive as, I don't know, my hand-drawn ones or something like that. Okay, now, this is a white paint pen here. And one of the things I could do is I think I'm going to make this a nighttime type of scene. So I'm going to color in that window, okay? There's a window on that cabin there, like that, okay? So it kind of puts it in night. It was hard to see. I can't see it. I'm looking at it kind of upside down too. And I'll put a reflection of that light down here in the water as well. Now that looks kind of weird. So I think what I'll do is I'll add in some of their white type of look too. So see that right there? Let's put a little bit of snow in here. Speaking of the bleed-proof white. If you don't have a bottle of this, I would suggest you get one and try it. It's so much fun. It's going back to kindergarten, when we, splatter painted some tempera paints over some construction paper and had a great time. Created a nighttime type of sky. When I was in elementary school, the next time we did it after kindergarten, I remember distinctly, someone, I don't know, our teacher got a gigantic box. Maybe someone bought a washing machine or something like that and gave the box to the class, but it became like our little fort in class, and they, splatter painted the side with a little bit of paint. And I don't know. Do you remember that cartoon character Ziggy? If you were old enough, you might remember that. But I don't know. There were several suggestions in class, and we voted on it by secret ballot. What the name of our kind of clubhouse was going to be, and it came out Ziggy's Corner. I remember thinking, I don't want that. But that was the one that won. Okay, so splatter painting. Okay, so this is like the consistency of like a syrup or something like that. Maple syrup. Okay. Let's see, can you see that? What's happening there? I'm just letting a couple little bristles go at a time, which gives me a lot more control over the amount sprayed. And I'm probably about 6 inches away, 7. I'm probably a little bit more careful on this type of surface than I am like on a, cardstock or something like that. Again, because it's just, this surface is already really quite, loud. So I don't want too loud of a additional texture applied on here. And also right here, I want that quote stamp to be very legible. So if I apply all these little dots over it, it might not become as readable. Okay. All right, I think that is about right. Every time I spray something, it's a different consistency every time. Sometimes I get large and small dots. Sometimes it's all, I don't know, kind of a uniform spray. I think it has to do with the speed at which you apply it. If you just go like zip, sometimes it's all the same. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, look at that. See how fun that is? Now see, here's the thing about the bleed proof white. I mean, you can use other types of things. You can even just do dot, dot, dot with like a correctional pen maybe, for individual stars. But if you want that degree of depth like that, see, like even that minute little splatter in there, it's very opaque. So when you look at something like this, it still shows through. If you're using other types of paints that are a little bit more, say, translucent in that diameter of, dot, you won't be able to see it as much. It doesn't mean that it won't look good, though, okay? But there we go right here. And let's break out our crystals, okay? You can never have too many crystals. Actually, you can. And this is something that's new to me, too. I haven't been using crystals for very long either, so... thank you for everyone that's giving me tips on different media. A lot of this is all new to me. I think I need to clear up my glue here, my old glue thing. Someone gave me some tips on how to use this glue, too. Just kind of putting it down and kind of dipping in and adding it like that. But that would be the best way to do it. But on these videos, I like to kind of move things around, move things along a little bit faster. So, okay, so let's go with, I don't know, maybe I'll make some kind of semblance of a constellation. Oop. See, this is why they say put it on something else, because you put too big of a glob of glue. People like that Cassiopeia constellation card that I did not too long ago. Cassiopeia is kind of like a, it looks like a W to me. It's like the chair, right? If you're an astronomer, cut me some slack here. It is my feeble attempt at the constellation. I apologize to all astronomers out there. That includes you, Laura, if you're watching this one, you and your husband. Okay, so it's kind of fun doing like an actual constellation. I don't know too many of them, but that's way too big there. But see that glue there? Someone was telling me about puffy paint too. I don't think I've heard of it before, but I checked it out, and I'll have to take a look at that sometime, or test it out. But they were talking about this kind of crystal and puffy paint, and that would be kind of cool. All right, using my thank you for the person that suggested this to this jewel picker, they call it. Just makes it really convenient. It has just that little rubber tip on there. It's like a nothing tool here. You just put that little rubber tip on it. Anything that kind of makes things really convenient and certainly useful is always welcome. Okay, I'm just using a couple different sizes of jewels. Here, I'm getting better at the jewel picker here. Except now this one won't come off. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there we have it. Easy to do, that's for sure. It's just stamping out. What do we do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And the water, I don't know. This is about 20 impressions or something like that on here, okay? No color additions or anything like that, but 20 impressions. Splatter painting, okay? And then the gems there. So let's take a look at this close up. Look at those gems there. Those gems really kind of, in terms of the format here, really go well with this reflective paper, don't they? They don't stand out as much as they would, like on a dark piece of paper. But in terms of theme, though, I think it'd be good if we had a couple little other stars, maybe. Maybe that's too distinct or something like that. But look at the depth there in those trees. 1 inking. 2. Okay, 2 inkings. Okay? But I would just ink up 1 time next time. Okay? And I would get, I don't know, 6 impressions. Oh yeah, I forgot I got the reflections. You can see that reflection right in there. It's subtle, but it's still in there. So I mean, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was 6 impressions out of 1 inking, and you're utilizing kind of the lighter aspect of it with each time to your benefit, in terms of achieving that depth in there. Okay, there's that cabin like that. And then those trees down below in the white. Okay. And there you have it at arm's distance right there. Look at those little twinkling little reflective crystals in there, huh? But doesn't this paper have kind of a different feel, depending on how you're looking at this, with the different lighting on it. I mean, it looks different from arm's distance, just because that the reflection in it changes, you know. So I don't know, it's an ever-changing card. You're going to stick this on somewhere where it's going to dry, and I think it's going to dry. It fades a little bit, like I said. It changes a little bit from freshly stamped to completely dry, but not so much that, it changes the spirit of it. Um, but I was telling people, I'm not someone that uses my oven every day, so I think and I have space in my room too. Or I said, if you have a bookshelf or something like that, just put them on top of a couple books or something like that, on your bookshelf. Or, I mean, you can store these and just put them aside for about 3 days, I would say, for complete drying. If you're in Arizona, maybe it takes overnight. Who knows? Utah or someplace where it's a lot more arid. In some places, if your house is really cold, maybe it takes, I don't know, maybe it takes longer than that. But or you can also just do something where you have it aside and then you kind of, if you want to expedite it, you heat set it from the back. I think it's kind of good to let it air dry a little bit more, where you have to, you don't have to apply so much of the heat gun to it, okay? And if you heat gun it, someone suggested to me that they dried the back of it, okay, as opposed to going straight on the front. If you go on the front, have it on lower heat, and just kind of move it around. Don't allow it to sit there and for that foil to kind of melt on you, okay? But just kind of play it by ear and just, see how things are developing. But I wouldn't suggest you get it too hot. And plus, if you get this kind of foil board too hot, it really starts to bend like that. What I found is if I started heating it up on the other side, it started to counterbend a little bit. But, I mean, I need to be careful here. You can just counterbend it like this, and it'll go right back into place. And then if you end up mounting or matting it onto like a stiff board or something like that, it'll do great. But if you mat it, as you're pressing down on that, just make sure you're not removing any ink, okay? So you might put a piece of tissue over it or something like that. So when you're pressing this down to get it flat onto the mounting surface, you're not removing ink. Like if this gets really dry and if I put my finger in there, okay, it's almost like, kind of like an affixed powder or something like that, and it could remove some of that, all right? But I think they're really worth it in terms of the finished results and just how easy it is to put these things together. I mean, this is like a 30-minute, I'm at the 30-minute mark right here, and I've been done for a while. I've been blabbing away. But I don't know, these are just so much fun, and I think they have a lot of impact. And I don't know, I think they're real stylish too. I don't think they're gaudy, which would be my kind of notion of it going into it, as far as what a scene could look like. I like atmosphere and depth in a scene, and just using one ink, I think we can achieve it, just with gold and white or something like that. When my other colors come in, I can't wait to try silver on silver or black on silver, or I have this new blue paper, startering paper, that I plan on using like some silver inks and white inks on it like that. But just that reflective type of quality, in this case a mirrored one, just has so much impact, and it's just, I don't know, these are really fun to put together and whatnot. And I think we're just kind of scratching the surface as far as the possibilities of it too. Okay, so anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you have any comments, suggestions too, this is all new to me in terms of the different inks. I'm getting some really good tips. People have mentioned things about the StazOn opaque, for me to kind of watch out for and to look for in terms of my applications of it. I haven't tried it on this paper yet, but I'd love to hear about that. I'm pretty experienced on, some forms of stamping, but when it comes to a lot of different media combinations, or just media in general, I don't know. I'm a complete beginner at it, but so I'd love to dip into your knowledge base and to, so I can just, I don't know, get right to kind of tried and true methodology and to experiment with that level of knowledge rather than just going into something kind of just from scratch, which is fun too, but it's just like if you already kind of know it doesn't work, that's also quite helpful. Okay, so anyways, thanks again. And thanks as always for tuning into the channel.